Have you ever noticed how easy it is to be a rebel in your own head?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like the moment you actually have to stand up to the crowd, that rebellion suddenly feels a lot like social suicide.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It is. We love the idea of pure, unconditional love. We watch movies about it, we read books, we tell ourselves that if we were tested, love would conquer all.
But reality is usually very different.
Exactly. What actually happens when the unstoppable force of true devotion meets the incredibly complex, unforgiving machinery of public judgment?
Usually one of them gets crushed.
Yeah, one of them gets completely crushed.
And the really terrifying part is that the crushing isn't always loud or, violent.
Right.
Often it's just a quiet withdrawal. It's a silent agreement by a community to simply erase you.
Wow. Yeah, just erase you.
And the fallout from that kind of psychological impact doesn't just ruin a single day. It rewires families. It leaves scars that cascade across generations.
It forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question, honestly. Does the society we've built actually protect our well-being, or does it operate like a strict immune system?
Just aggressively rejecting anything that doesn't fit the mold.
Exactly. And that is exactly the mechanism we are unpacking today. Welcome back to another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
And for everyone joining us on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel, we are so glad you're here for this.
We really are.
If you find yourself getting hooked by the psychology and sociology we explore in these sessions, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like on the video, and leave your thoughts in the comments.
It really helps.
It humbly helps the channel grow, and it tells us that you want more of these profound, intricate narratives.
Which today's narrative definitely is.
Oh, without a doubt. Today's mission takes us directly into one of those stories. We're looking at a single, incredibly potent story from Munshi Premchand's Mansarovar Part 4.
Right.
It's called Do Kabren, which translates to Two Graves.
And, Premchand is often remembered as a master of portraying rural Indian life and poverty.
Sure, yeah.
But Do Kabren showcases his brilliance as a psychological realist. He's dissecting the anatomy of hypocrisy among the educated elite.
Which is fascinating.
It really is. The story revolves around a father's radical devotion, the toxic nature of social stigma, and the very real body count that piles up when we prioritize our reputation over human life.
And we really want to frame this properly for you listening right now, because while this was written nearly a century ago, the mechanics of how human beings shame each other haven't changed a bit.
Not at all. We might use different platforms today, but the instinct to exile the outsider is identical.
Exactly. So let's get into how this story sets its foundation. It doesn't start with a massive ideological debate in a town square.
No, it's much quieter.
Right. It starts with a remarkably quiet, intimate routine. We meet Kunwar Ranvir Singh. He's a wealthy estate owner, a man of significant social standing.
Very high status.
But every single evening, for 15 years without missing a day, he goes to a graveyard.
15 years.
Yeah. He painstakingly decorates a specific grave with flowers, and he weeps over it.
You have to consider the psychological endurance required for a 15-year daily ritual.
It's staggering.
It is. This isn't just grief, This is a daily anchoring of his own identity.
Right.
And the identity of the person in the grave is what makes this a radical act. If this were a socially sanctioned wife from a prominent family, the town would just view him as a tragic, devoted widower.
But it's not.
No, this grave belongs to Zura. And Zura was a courtesan.
Right. And society had completely labeled her a fallen woman.
Yes.
But when we look at Kunwar's backstory, the picture gets really interesting. He had 2 previous marriages to women of his own elite social class.
And both of those marriages were childless.
Exactly. Childless, and both felt totally empty to him. He was performing the role of an aristocrat, but he was hollow.
Just going through the motions.
Yeah. Then he meets Zura. And despite the entire world telling him she is fundamentally beneath him, he spends 5 years with her that he describes as absolute paradise.
This is where we start seeing the why behind his devotion. With Zura, Kunwar didn't have to perform.
He could just be himself.
Right. He didn't have to navigate the exhausting superficial currency of high society expectations. He found a genuine human connection in the margins of society because the center of society was suffocating him.
But paradise is brief.
Very brief.
Zura tragically passes away, leaving Kunwar with a 3-year-old daughter, Sulochana.
Now think about how this usually plays out, even today.
Oh, yeah.
If someone of high status has a child with someone the community deems an unacceptable partner, what happens?
The child is hidden.
Exactly. They're sent away to boarding school or raised quietly by a nanny in a separate house.
Because the parent tries to compartmentalize the mistake to protect their primary asset, which is their reputation.
But Kunwar does the exact opposite. He makes Sulochana the absolute center of his universe.
He really does. He weaponizes his own privilege to protect her.
Yes.
He doesn't just raise her. He actively tries to overwrite the stigma of her birth through extreme, visible validation.
He oversees her education meticulously.
And when she eventually attends university, he doesn't just send her in a hired carriage.
No, he personally drives her in his motor car, dropping her off and picking her up in front of everyone.
Which is such a bold move. He is essentially daring society to say a word against her.
He's using his status as a bulletproof vest for his daughter.
Right. He's telling the world, my love for her is louder than your judgment.
But a social system doesn't like being challenged like that.
Not at all. It will bide its time,
Yeah.
waiting for a moment of vulnerability to reassert its rules.
And that brings us to a major pivot in the story.
Yeah, so Sulochana is at the university, and we are introduced to Dr. Ramendra, her college professor.
Dr. Ramendra represents the new, educated, seemingly progressive man.
Seemingly being the key word there.
Very much so. One day, he happens to be near the graveyard and spots Kunwar performing his daily ritual.
And Sulochana is nearby, right?
Yeah, she's playing with her dog. Ramendra is intrigued, but his brain literally cannot process what he is seeing.
Why not?
Because he sees an aristocratic, wealthy man bowing and weeping at a grave. In his mind, an aristocrat only bows to God.
Oh, wow.
So Ramendra approaches Kunwar and asks if this is the grave of a Mahatma, a great saint, or a highly revered soul.
It's such a revealing question.
Isn't it?
Ramendra's social conditioning is so deep that he has to categorize Kunwar's devotion as something religious just to make it socially acceptable.
He can't fathom a man ruining his knees in the dirt for a courtesan.
And Kunwar's response here is just brilliant. He doesn't get defensive. He doesn't whisper.
No, he owns it.
He looks at Ramendra and says, to the eyes of the world, she wasn't a Mahatma, but to my eyes, she was. This is the grave of my love.
By saying that, Kunwar completely rejects Ramendra's need to sanitize the situation.
Yeah, he owns the narrative.
And Ramendra is actually deeply moved by this vulnerability. Despite knowing exactly who Sulochana's mother was, Ramendra falls in love with her.
Which seems like a good thing at first.
Right. Their relationship blossoms and they decide to get married. At this stage, Ramendra feels like a victory for Kunwar.
He seems to be a man whose intellect and education have freed him from the petty prejudices of the elite class.
Operative word there being, seems?
Because holding a progressive belief in the privacy of a graveyard or your living room is incredibly easy.
Oh, absolutely.
The real test is the public execution of that belief. So Kunwar organizes this massive wedding feast in Mussoorie.
He wants to celebrate this union loudly.
He invites the entire ecosystem of high society. We're talking about the Panditji, Babuji, Lala Saab, Chakari Sahab.
All respectable pillars.
Yeah, the men who dictate morality for the town.
But when the evening of the feast arrives, the hall remains empty.
Wow.
Not a single one of the elites shows up. They execute a complete, unanimous boycott of the wedding.
Because they refuse to sanction the marriage of a courtesan's daughter.
Exactly. They decide that attending the wedding would equal a public endorsement of blurring class lines.
And this is where we have to talk about the mechanics of the boycott. Like, why a boycott? Why not confront Kunwar?
Or write a letter.
Right, because silence is a devastatingly effective tool of the powerful.
It really is.
A boycott requires zero confrontation, zero debate, and it completely isolates the target. You can't argue with an empty chair.
No, you can't.
But Kunwar points out the staggering hypocrisy here. He knows these men.
He knows their secrets.
He notes that these exact same elites, the ones who are suddenly too pure to eat at his table, are the very men who secretly indulge in every vice in private hotel rooms.
Yep. They consort with the exact same type of fallen women they are currently punishing Sulochana for being related to.
It perfectly illustrates that for this social class, morality has absolutely nothing to do with personal virtue or ethics.
Morality is purely a public performance.
It is a curated image.
If they attend the wedding, their own social currency is devalued by association.
So the hypocrisy isn't a glitch in their system.
The hypocrisy is the system. They rely on the existence of a marginalized underclass to exploit in private while maintaining their own superiority in public.
So the elites have drawn their line in the sand, and the fallout from this silent rejection is where the true tragedy begins.
It's heartbreaking.
We get this brilliant, tense contrast between how the two men Kunwar and his new son-in-law, Ramendra, handled the empty hall.
Kunwar, the older man, barely blinks.
He's used to it.
He has been carrying this stigma for 15 years. He calmly tells Ramendra, "Don't worry about them, just take the food and feed it to the poor."
To Kunwar, the boycott just proves his point about how toxic these people are.
But Ramendra's psychological state completely fractures.
Yeah, he falls apart.
Unlike Kunwar, Ramendra doesn't have inherited aristocratic wealth to insulate him. He is a professor.
Right.
His entire identity, his livelihood, and his sense of self-worth are entirely dependent on being respected by the community.
So when he looks at those empty chairs, he doesn't see hypocrisy.
He sees his own social death. His ego is fatally wounded.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay, go for it.
Because it's easy for us to sit back and call Ramendra a coward. But let's look at it from his perspective.
Sure.
Kunwar is essentially asking Ramendra to commit social suicide. Kunwar is rich enough to build his own world, but Ramendra has to go to work on Monday.
He has to face the university board.
Right, he has to look his colleagues in the eye. Is it entirely fair for Kunwar to expect Ramendra to instantly possess the same titanium-level defiance that took Kunwar 15 years to build?
That is a very valid distinction. Ramendra's status is earned, which makes it fragile.
Exactly.
He is suddenly realizing that the love conquers all narrative doesn't pay his salary or maintain his respect in the classroom.
Right.
However, where Ramendra fundamentally fails is in his intellectual honesty. Rather than admitting, "I am terrified of losing my status," he turns his fear into a weapon against his new wife.
Which is just brutal. And this prompts Kunwar to deliver one of the most profound sociological arguments in the text.
Yes, Kunwar tries to philosophically break this down for Ramendra.
He basically gives a masterclass on the economics of morality.
It really does.
Kunwar argues that society's so-called evils, or vices, are almost entirely driven by grim, brutal necessity.
He says, look, a hungry man might steal a piece of bread. Is he inherently evil, or is his body just demanding survival?
Right. Kunwar pleads with Ramendra not to judge the women forced into the margins, explaining that the sheer instinct to live forces people into dark corners.
As long as survival is a luxury, vice will be a necessity.
It's an incredibly empathetic worldview.
Kunwar is essentially telling his highly educated son-in-law, your education should give you the capacity to see the system, not blindly enforce its cruelty.
You are punishing the victims of a structure they didn't create.
But intellect doesn't cure cowardice.
No, it doesn't.
Intellect just gives Ramendra a better vocabulary to justify his panic. The public humiliation is ringing too loudly in his ears.
He cannot synthesize Kunwar's empathy because his own survival instinct, his social survival, has taken over.
And he snaps.
The cognitive dissonance is too much, so his brain has to make someone the villain so he doesn't have to feel like a coward.
He turns to his new bride, Sulochana, the woman he just married.
And he calls her poison.
Yes.
He tells Kunwar that he refuses to keep this poison in his house. He rejects her on their wedding day.
It's chilling.
It really is, because it forces you to ask, what was his love made of? Was it ever real?
Or did he just love the idea of being a progressive, enlightened man, or right up until the exact second that costume cost him something?
It was conditional love, predicated on the assumption that society would applaud his open-mindedness.
When they threw stones instead, the love evaporated.
Yeah. Now, how Sulochana reacts to this betrayal is crucial.
She is the ultimate innocent here.
She really is. She didn't ask to be born to a courtesan. She didn't ask for the elites to boycott. And she didn't ask for Ramendra's performative love.
But she is not passive.
No, she has her father's spine.
Kunwar tries to intervene. He begs her to just stay, let the dust settle, wait for Ramendra's anger to cool off.
He thinks time will fix it.
But Sulochana refuses. She sees exactly what just happened.
She understands immediately that if she stays, she will forever be an object of tolerance at best, or a source of deep, festering resentment.
She possesses too much self-respect to exist in a space where her very existence is viewed as a concession.
And she utters a line that is just devastating to read.
She says that if she is to be reborn, she prays to be born into a respectable family so that she never has to endure this inherited shame again.
Think about the weight of that.
It's incredibly heavy.
The psychological damage inflicted by society is so absolute that it makes a vibrant, educated, deeply loved young woman wish for a different birth, just so she can be treated with a baseline of human dignity.
It's an indictment of the entire social order.
It really is. And it leads us into the tragic resolution of the narrative. Premchand shifts the timeline forward, and he leaves us with a highly cinematic, deeply haunting final visual.
We return to the graveyard where the story began.
But now there are two graves side by side.
The contrast between how these two graves look tells the entire end of the story.
Zura's grave, the one Kunwar famously tended to every day for 15 years, is now completely neglected.
The plaster is crumbling, the flowers are gone, and wild, untamed glass has swallowed it up.
But right next to it, the second newer grave is absolutely pristine.
It is meticulously maintained, surrounded by carefully arranged potted plants and a beautiful path of rose vines.
And that pristine second grave belongs to Sulochana.
The rejection by the man she loved, compounded by the crushing weight of societal hatred, broke her.
She died of a broken heart shortly after the wedding.
But her final dying wish is incredibly significant.
Yeah, she had the right to be cremated according to the aristocratic Hindu traditions of her father's lineage.
Instead, she demanded to be buried in the earth, directly next to her mother.
Why does she do that? Why reject the aristocracy at the very end?
Because the aristocracy rejected her. It is her final, permanent act of defiance. By choosing burial next to her mother, she reclaims the identity that society hated her for.
She refuses to assimilate into a culture that demanded she apologize for her existence.
And the reason Zura's grave is now ruined is because Kunwar, having lost both the woman he loved and the daughter he lived for, died of his own shattered heart just 6 months later.
Oh, wow. So there's no one left from that original family to tend the stones.
But the irony is, someone is tending the new grave.
In the fading yellow sunlight, we see a man carefully cleaning Sulochana's resting place.
He's picking up every fallen leaf, he's sprinkling fragrant perfume over the dirt.
And that man is Dr. Ramendra.
The psychology of his presence there is agonizing.
He's trapped.
Ramendra is trapped in a prison of his own making. He realizes entirely too late the catastrophic mistake he made.
He threw away genuine, unconditional human connection to appease a group of hypocritical elites who never actually cared about him in the first place.
He traded his soul for the empty approval of a crowd.
And now, he is forced to live out his days performing the exact same ritual of grief he once questioned Kunwar about.
He can love her now because she's dead.
Ouch. Yeah, a grave doesn't require public defense.
Exactly. He doesn't have to risk his reputation to sprinkle perfume on a stone. It's safe. Cowardly love.
And Premchand twists the knife with one final, devastating detail.
As Ramendra tends to this grave, there is a little girl with him.
It is his and Sulochana's 3-year-old daughter, Shobha.
And Shobha is just happily running around in the fading light, innocently catching butterflies.
The text notes that she genuinely believes her mother is just sleeping down there and will one day emerge.
The cycle is ruthlessly complete.
Zura left a 3-year-old daughter.
Sulochana has now left a 3-year-old daughter.
The collateral damage of a society that prioritizes rigid, unyielding norms over human compassion is a generational loop of trauma and motherless children.
So we have to pull all of this back to you, the listener.
Why does a story from early 20th century India matter to your life right now?
It matters because the mechanics of social stigma are identical today.
We might not have Lala Sahibs boycotting our wedding feasts over aristocratic lineage, but we constantly, obsessively edit our lives to avoid the boycott of our own modern elites.
We absolutely do. We curate our relationships, our opinions, and our choices to appease our extended family, our professional network, or the invisible judging audience on social media.
We abandon parts of ourselves or people we care about because we are terrified of losing our precarious standing in whatever hierarchy we belong to.
Ramendra's tragedy is a mirror, showing us exactly what happens when you let the fear of the crowd dictate your moral compass.
Exactly. It's that collision we talked about at the very beginning. The wreckage is inevitable when you value consensus over connection.
Which brings us to a final, provocative thought.
Something to really mull over as you go about the rest of your day. We look at the elites in this story boycotting a wedding, and we call them cruel and hypocritical.
But look at our modern world.
Look at cancel culture and the digital panopticon we've built online.
That is a fascinating parallel.
Are we really any different? When the internet decides someone is unacceptable, don't we all quietly unfollow, silently step back, and refuse to associate with them just to protect our own digital reputation?
Are we participating in the exact same silent boycott?
In our desperate attempt to stay in the good graces of the digital crowd, how often are we acting exactly like Dr. Ramendra, sacrificing our own intellectual honesty and human empathy just to ensure we aren't the next ones exiled?
It forces us to ask if we are actually progressing or just finding more efficient technological ways to enforce the same ancient hypocrisies.
That is a question that requires some deep, uncomfortable self-reflection. Thank you all for taking this deep dive with us today.
It's been a powerful one.
If this exploration of Do Kabren challenged your perspective, please make sure to subscribe to the Simplified Summary channel, drop a like on this video, and share your thoughts in the comments.
We truly want to know.
When push comes to shove, would you have the courage of Kunwar? Or would the fear of the crowd turn you into Ramendra? Think about it. We'll see you next time.